Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Swallowed Star 2, Land of Origin based on novel. So let's start. A conflict in Chu, capital of the flame-wind ancient country, spread first throughout the entire city, then it spread across the entire land of origin in a short amount of time. Flame-wind ancient country has another transcendent being of the primal chaos realm emerged. The 70th first transcendence of the primal chaos realm in the entire land of origin. Great Saint Luo He. Regardless of the overt or covert powers, all were highly interested in this piece of information. Because transcendence of the primal chaos realm could now be regarded as the equivalent of an ordinary godly king, and numerically, transcendence of the primal chaos realm were even rarer than godly kings. See a thnovlia.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The name Great Saint Luo He was recorded by many nations and forces. What? He has transcended the primal chaos realm. Her Royal Highness Princess Yu Shui Tianyu of Yu Kingdom was somewhat perplexed when she received the news. When he was living reclusively in Huyang City, he only displayed the strength of an eternal true god. Now that he has gone to Chu capital, he has transcended the primal chaos realm. No wonder he didn't acknowledge my father as his teacher. The princess somewhat understood. Those who have transcended the primal chaos realm, holding a status equivalent to an ordinary godly king, desire even more to take emperors as their mentors. Of course, the powerful beings of the entire land of origin would most prefer to take as their mentors the ancestors of the two ancient countries. Alas, these ancestors of the ancient countries, seldom appearing even in the longest of ages. Even some ancient godly kings struggle to meet them, let alone to take them as mentors. The tier of an emperor is more commonly seen in the land of origin. Great Saint Luo He has actually transcended the primal chaos realm. Marquis Liu Yin, aware of the news, was also somewhat shocked. The last time he and I sparred, he merely exhibited the pinnacle strength of the primal chaos realm, and did not destroy my true body. Was he deliberately concealing his strength? Or did he make a breakthrough after arriving in Chu capital? Marquis Liu Yin felt somewhat panicked. Gaining an enemy who has transcended the primal chaos realm was naturally troublesome. His city, Huyang City, is right next to my fief. Marquis Liu Yin was somewhat distracted. Ha ha ha. On the other hand, Marquis of Zhujiang, upon receiving the news, was overjoyed. Brother Luo He has actually transcended the primal chaos realm. Sending him Huyang City back then was a stroke of genius, pure genius. His fief was secure for the future. And he now had a strong support. The gap between the top and the pinnacle of the primal chaos realm wasn't considered too large. Like Marquis of Zhujiang, could engage with Marquis Liu Yin in a few moves and still manage to escape. But the gap between the pinnacle and the transcendence of the primal chaos realm was huge. This was a qualitative change. Normally, those who have transcended the primal chaos realm often rely on primordial force, or primordial materials to cultivate some special legacies, granting themselves the strength of a godly king tier. They completely overpower those at the pinnacle of the primal chaos realm. Luo Feng also managed this step through his formless and intangible ability. Thunder Ancient Country, another of the two core powers of the land of origin, had almost half of the border countries completely aligned with Thunder Ancient Country. In these border countries, there were no flame-wind pavilions, only thunderclap commerce. A city on the border of Thunder Ancient Country. Boom 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 tilde tilde tilde. A burly man with blue scale armor wings, clad in heavy armor, rode a primal chaos realm exotic beast exuding endless chill as he led the royal guard team descending from the sky, heading straight for the city owner's mansion. City Lord. The subordinates inside the city owner's mansion bowed respectfully upon seeing the burly man. This was none other than the most revered figure of the entire city, the city lord Zhuoshanjin. Hurry and prepare some food and drink. The burly man ordered and then headed towards the main hall, while the primal chaos realm exotic beast flew to its own territory inside the city owner's mansion. Inside the main hall, the burly man's massive wings retracted, an invisible aura of authority naturally spread, his eyes deep while his lips curled up slightly, displaying a hint of a smile. The talent of this disciple of mine is truly impressive. Having arrived in the land of origin just over 30 years ago, he has already become a transcendent of the primal chaos realm, the burly man thought. His talent and potential far surpass mine. Revenge is hopeful, the burly man thought. He was indeed mountain-sitting guest, reincarnated in the land of origin. As Luo Feng's mentor, based on some detailed information about Luo He, such as the time he emerged in the land of origin and the time Luo Feng experienced reincarnation, the weapons used. A godly body as tall as the heavens. Very few friends and family, with one called primordial. Based on this information, mountain-sitting guest could easily deduce that Luo He was Luo Feng. Although my greatest hope is pinned on my disciple, I also need to strive myself, so that in the future when we actually confront the Sha Kingdom, I don't become a burden to my disciple, and at best, I could even restrain one or two from the Sha Kingdom, the burly man thought. Originally, I followed Flame Wind Ancient Country, but this life it seems I shall be a guest official of Thunder Ancient Country. Thunder Ancient Country should have some legacies different from those of the Flame Wind Ancient Country. I hope that in this life, my strength will advance further, the burly man thought. Mountain-sitting guest was well aware that in the past he survived being chased by 3 masters of the Sha Kingdom using his ability to protect himself. But for revenge, merely relying on the ability to protect oneself was not enough. A fundamental breakthrough in strength was essential. Thunder Ancient Country, most adept at cultivating using the primordial bloodline. In this lifetime, I will try this path. Mountain-sitting guest knew this path was equally arduous and even prone to madness, yet without a doubt, once successful, the power was terrifying. The ancient existences of Thunder Ancient Country were no less powerful than the emperors of Flame Wind Ancient Country. The name of great Saint Luo He was first spread throughout the land of origin. In Chu capital, many sought to visit and befriend Luo Feng, and some wished to become his disciples. However, Luo Feng was not inclined to take on another disciple. The first disciple he had taken in the land of origin had been taught by Morosa. Could he really take on another and still leave the teaching to Morosa? Master, recently there have been many inviting your disciple. Moyu Qingyang looked at Luo Feng. May your disciple go out? If you want to go out, then go. Luo Feng nodded. In the years to come in your cultivation journey, choose whatever friends you wish to make, and decide how to proceed on your own. Of course, you must also bear the consequences of your decisions. Moyu Qingyang, thoughtful, immediately responded, disciple understands. Luo Feng immediately turned and left. Qingyang, Morosa spoke, the waters run deep in Chu capital, and you, a little true god of void space, might be unaware even when calculated against by illusions and other methods. For the time being, I'll accompany you whenever you go out. Morosa was quite worried about Moyu Qingyang. Indeed, he had invested much more effort in teaching the disciple than Luo Feng had. That's great. Moyu Qingyang also breathed a sigh of relief. He had been feeling stifled practicing within the cave dwelling, and he was curious about Chu capital, one of the most bustling supercities in the land of origin. The primordial ancestor was also receiving invitations from some forces within Chu capital. The primordial ancestor naturally did not refuse anyone and accepted the invitations leisurely. Each time he attended, it was only his illusionary avatar. His illusionary avatar was a physical body almost identical to his true body, just without the true god's heart. Luo Feng's cave dwelling, quiet room, within the space of Star Tower. As a transcendence of primal chaos realm, Luo Feng mostly dismissed the visits from most forces within Chu capital, allowing him to focus on his cultivation. Brother Luo He, Emperor Chu Yu communicated, I've carefully checked some tasks with considerable merit points. They are all of very high difficulty, and haven't been completed by guest elders in a long time. You can take a look first. Soon, Emperor Chu Yu sent over a pile of detailed reports on the tasks. Luo Feng immediately reviewed them. The first task was the complete elimination of Lord of Seduction City from the primal chaos realm. Lord of Seduction City, a pinnacle of primal chaos realm, was a city lord within the Thunder Ancient Country. He had previously, during his travels, manipulated the desires of many creatures, causing numerous creatures to die, including 3 eternal true gods from the imperial clan of Flame Wind Ancient Country. When Lord of Seduction City realized the identities of the deceased, he immediately sought refuge in Thunder Ancient Country. This task was valued at 200,000 merit points. Complete elimination. Luo Feng frowned as he read, according to the task requirements. So-called complete elimination means making the enemy completely disappear from the land of origin, leaving no trace of his karma. As for whether the target could reincarnate, that was difficult to determine. After all, if the reincarnation was kept secret, no one could recognize it. Lord of Seduction City excels at manipulating the spiritual will. According to the intel, his spiritual will definitely reaches the godly king level. Luo Feng thought inwardly, my spiritual will at the second realm of godly king might only be slightly stronger than his, and even if I were to use the Lai Yuan technique, I could not kill him. The pinnacles of primal chaos realm, having cultivated for endless years, had greatly honed their spiritual will, even killed true gods of the imperial clan, or been discovered stealing rare treasures. These minor issues were beneath the emperor's notice. And while some godly kings could kill a primal chaos realm, if the target regained consciousness for even a moment, they could directly reincarnate. That would then be another powerful enemy in the shadows. Godly kings didn't fear those from primal chaos realm, but what about their children and loved ones? Therefore, killing someone from primal chaos realm was indeed a troublesome task. Not many want to take on tasks that involve killing someone from primal chaos realm, Luo Feng thought. The difficulty in dealing with the master of Sha Kingdom will be much higher. After becoming a guest official of primal chaos realm, being a marquis of the first rank, Emperor Chu Yu also provided Luo Feng with a substantial amount of detailed intel from the entire land of origin. Luo Feng thus gained a deeper understanding of the strength of those 3 masters of Sha Kingdom from the past. Master of Tian Kuan from Sha Kingdom, a godly king of the second realm, as a guest elder of Flame Wind Ancient Country, who also practiced a powerful legacy, possessed formidable strength. There weren't many in the entire land of origin stronger than him, and his ability to save his own life was beyond question. Even if an emperor took action, being able to directly suppress Master of Tian Kuan, they couldn't claim to be able to kill him completely. Even the sin-laden ancestral god of the snow realm from the first realm of godly king had survived till today, which attests to the life-preserving capabilities of these ancient beings. The stronger the strength, the more mysterious and unpredictable the life-saving abilities. To completely kill the master of Tian Kuan from Sha Kingdom, ensuring even his reincarnation, is impossible. What level of power must I obtain? Luo Feng shook his head lightly, it's still far from me. These high-merit troublesome missions, besides pursuing those from the primal chaos realm, are related to Thunder Ancient Country. For example, the Snatch the Heavenly Yin Fruit mission, where for every heavenly yin fruit, Emperor Chu's lineage is willing to pay 10,000 merit points for purchase, the more the better, no upper limit. And in the border region adjacent to the 2 ancient countries, there is a heavenly yin fruit tree, which is currently in its maturation period, with an estimated thousands of fruits maturing in succession. The Thunder Ancient Country has set up a powerful formation, with a garrison commander, who has transcended the primal chaos realm. The two great ancient countries occupy the most central and prosperous areas of the land of origin, monopolizing the various rare treasures nurtured by heaven and earth. They also fight each other, contending for the other's treasures. Luo Feng looked at these missions. Heavenly Bend Stone Essence, for instance, ranks lower among the resources of the two ancient countries, and is only sporadically poached by the particularly bold. As for something more precious like the heavenly yin fruit, even godly kings dare not pilfer it easily. Usually, it's the two ancient countries that act against each other to snatch it. These troublesome missions are divided into three categories, namely bounty missions, garrison missions, and treasure-snatching missions. Luo Feng reviewed. Bounty missions are very difficult to complete by killing the target. If the target reincarnates, that adds a stealthy great enemy. Garrison missions consume a lot of time. Treasure-snatching missions are extremely dangerous. Luo Feng pondered for a moment. With the ability to break laws with force, he could bully the weaker ones. But high-merit garrison and treasure-snatching missions were likely to encounter opponents of the same level. Those who had transcended the primal chaos realm all had higher realms, and their methods were unfathomable and mysterious. Compared to other transcended beings of the primal chaos realm, I only know how to charge blindly ahead, which makes me easily played. I still need to accumulate more, Luo Feng thought as he looked at these missions. Only bounty missions are most suitable for me. I'll also discard targets with very strong spiritual will. I'll choose those with weaker spiritual will. Luo Feng reviewed the bounty missions, and finally set his sights on one. Bounty mission: eradicate Great Saint Bayu completely. Great Saint Bayu had not offended the flame-wind ancient country, but the reason for his bounty was due to a hobby of his, treating cultivators as delicacies. Within his territory, he deliberately built many ordinary cities for cultivators to live in, occasionally devouring all the cultivators in an ordinary city. He didn't devour them all at once, but rather savored them slowly. Because his domain wasn't big enough, his feasting wasn't as satisfying. Occasionally, he would roam elsewhere to devour. When feasting in foreign lands, he would indulge himself, devouring an entire large city's creatures in one gulp. However, this action would also infuriate the masters of those domains. Great Saint Bayu did not dare to make too many enemies, and had to control the frequency of his actions. Such behavior ultimately landed him on the bounty list of the flame-wind ancient country. Although he had been killed a few times in his true body, he was still alive and well to this day. This Great Saint Bayu, Luo Feng remembered that back, when he was in Huyang City, dealing with Mei Wuqi mentioned this Great Saint Bayu, who would swallow a large city in one bite. He's at the pinnacle level of the primal chaos realm, and is said to cultivate the great Tao of life origin, having an extremely strong ability to preserve his life. Luo Feng read the briefing and regarded such arbitrary devouring of creatures as scum in his eyes. The briefing stirred his killing intent. I haven't heard that his spiritual will is particularly strong. Let's see if he can withstand my Lai Yuan technique, Luo Feng thought. At this stage, using the Lai Yuan technique against those from the primal chaos realm is no big deal. First of all, as a supreme secret technique, the Lai Yuan technique is unique, belonging only to him. Nobody knows the characteristics of the Lai Yuan technique, making it tough to identify that Luo Feng possesses it. Furthermore, as a being transcended from the primal chaos realm, grasping a supreme secret technique by chance is not an unusual affair. As far as Luo Feng knew, the ancestor left behind many opportunities, most of which were monopolized by the two ancient countries. To thoroughly slay someone at the pinnacle of the primal chaos realm is truly difficult. Even for me. I'd have to rely on the Lai Yuan technique, Luo Feng silently lamented. No wonder godly kings were not too willing to accept missions. My close combat skills are formidable. With one move, I can annihilate an enemy. Yet, the enemy possesses all sorts of life-saving secret techniques, like regenerating from a drop of blood, or using a resurrection vessel. However formidable my close combat might be, it poses no threat to a resurrection vessel hidden somewhere in the land of origin. Tianji Icefield. Great Saint Bayu was large in stature, with a huge furry head, as he leisurely walked through the harsh wilderness, looking distantly at the city ahead. This city has reproduced enough cultivators. Great Saint Bayu eyed his cultivated food, licking his lips hungrily. Devouring cultivators was not only a hobby, but also an essential part of Great Saint Bayu's cultivation method, allowing him to meditate on the great Tao of life origin. In the land of origin, there are some who are at the level of primal chaos realm, and godly kings in the great Tao of life origin, including those like Luo Feng, who pity weaker life forms. There are also others like the ancestral god of the snow realm, and Great Saint Bayu, who view countless lives as materials for cultivation, great demon lords. This lineage might not be strong in direct combat, but they generally possess an extremely strong ability to preserve their lives. Father, I've become a true god, a young girl excitedly rushed out of the quiet room to tell her parents. Big sister is so amazing. Her younger brother and little sister, both children, crowded around the girl, cheering. The Tianji Icefield has a harsh living environment, making acquiring cultivation resources much more challenging. The bloodline cultivation system, in particular, requires a plethora of resources. Without them, progress is difficult. The parents looked at their eldest daughter, smiling with joy. Her breakthrough was mostly thanks to her father's adventures outside the city, slaughtering exotic beasts, and obtaining their essence. In the future, I'll strive to become a true god of void space. Then I can take good care of father and mother, as well as my brother, standing in the open field, suddenly opened his mouth. Boom. Countless creatures within the city suddenly saw an immense head appear above the city. The head was so large that it was difficult for the creatures within the city to see it clearly in its entirety. The gaping maw of this furry head had already completely enveloped the sky above the city. No. What is this? Help. Great Saint Bayu, save us. Numerous cultivators were in a state of panic, some even calling for Great Saint Bayu to save them. Because every time Bayu devoured a city of creatures, his territory would bear no rumors of his devouring of creatures. For with his strength, as soon as such rumors emerged, he would quickly devour those spreading them. Whoosh! An unseen wave of terror covered the entire city, sweeping all the creatures within toward that gaping maw in the sky. Father, mother, brother, sister, a girl who had just become a true god was in a panic, trying to grab onto her family members. But as they were swept up and began to fly, they couldn't come together again, they could only watch each other in despair. Ha ha ha. On the enormous head of Great Saint Bayu, his face was filled with satisfaction, as he was obsessed with this kind of devouring. Suddenly, a hint of suspicion flashed in his eyes as he noticed a man dressed in black appearing in the field. This man in black had stepped out from the void, appearing as an ordinary cultivator. To the now city-sized Great Saint Bayu, this man in black seemed like nothing more than a tiny speck. Yet, he was trembling inside, because he recognized at a glance that this person was indeed the Great Saint Luo He, as depicted in intelligence reports. Great Saint Luo He, that was a transcendence of primal chaos realm, a guest elder in Flame Wind ancient country. Luo Feng, seeing what was before him, did not hesitate to employ the Lai Yuan technique. Great Saint Bayu found that everything before him had vanished. He could no longer see Great Saint Luo He, and he could no longer feel his own existence. In the world he could see, there was only a single, endlessly majestic star. This immensely huge star, constructed by Luo Feng's spiritual will using the Lai Yuan technique, was focused into a singular force. At this moment, it came rolling in, crashing down upon the spiritual will of great Saint Bayu. Pu. His spiritual will was obliterated instantly, without any chance to resist. After countless years, great Saint Bayu too had reached the pinnacle of primal chaos realm with his will. Even when facing a godly king's will would typically only suppress him. To kill him with just willpower. Such cases were rare among godly kings. See a thnoelfire.nt website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. But at this moment, his entire spiritual will was extinguished in an instant. Whoosh! The colossal body of great Saint Bayu in the sky, having lost consciousness, began to fall. Countless swept up citizens, losing the force that swept them up, also began to fall toward the city below. Buzz. Luo Feng waved his hand, collecting the body of great Saint Bayu. His spiritual will is still within the primal chaos realm category, Luo Feng confirmed after the confrontation. As long as it's within the primal chaos realm, it can still be killed in a thought with the Lai Yuan technique. The leap from the pinnacle of primal chaos realm to godly king level is a qualitative change. Godly kings will combined with the Lai Yuan technique could sweep through all primal chaos realm willpower strongholds. But there is not much difference between the first realm and second realm of godly king. Even with the Lai Yuan technique, at most, it would only suppress. The Lai Yuan technique is already quite powerful. Luo Feng was clear that completely killing a cultivator, preventing even reincarnation, was extremely difficult. Utter annihilation of will is quite rare, and demands very high requirements. The ordinary secret techniques of willpower do not possess the power of the Lai Yuan technique. In the land of origin, complete annihilation usually follows two paths. One is the path of causality. Even for cultivators of the causal great Tao, substantial strength superiority is required to use causality to instantly eliminate all of the opponent's means of revival. The other and most challenging one to cultivate is the path of the soul. Powerful practitioners of the soul path can directly annihilate the opponent's soul, naturally leading to complete death. But the path of the soul has no great Tao within the supreme rules. It must be explored and grown within the darkness by oneself. It is widely acknowledged as the most difficult path to cultivate. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Dense swarms of cultivators fell from the sky, landing within the city. Father, mother, the girl regrouped with her parents, younger brother and sister. They were anxious and confusedly looked towards the sky. After landing within the city, countless cultivators looked towards the sky in fear. The once gigantic moor in the sky had now disappeared. Having killed this great Saint Bayu and obtained a complete body, I can provide it as food for Morosa, mused Luo Feng as he already traversed the void, heading for Flame Wind ancient country. This video will end here.